again and welcome to Product Thinking with Seun. I just want to start off by saying a very big thank you to everyone that liked, commented and shared my previous episode. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your feedback and I hope to be incorporating some of this feedback moving forward. In today's episode, which is episode 2, I'll be talking about how to say no to your stakeholders. Now for the focus of emphasis, I'll be talking about how to say no to business stakeholders, senior stakeholders. I'm talking about stakeholders that have more autonomy over the product. I'm not necessarily referring to the engineering or design team because these are part of your stakeholders as well. So keep watching. As the product manager, we've been often told that we are the CEO of the product. Well, this is a very debatable statement because you are not necessarily the CEO of the organization. You still have to report to your CEO, you still have to report to some business stakeholders, you still have to report to a client, right? And these people have a big say in the direction that your product takes per time. Oftentimes, these stakeholders will come with feature requests. These feature requests could be based on the direction an organization is trying to take. These feature requests could be based on what investors are suggesting per time. And these feature requests could just be based on the instincts of your boss. It's difficult sometimes to say no because this is the person that employed you. And their feature requests and their decisions might not always make business sense all the time. As a product manager, how do you say no to these feature requests? How do you fine-tune some of the ideas that your business stakeholders are having? Well, in this episode, I'll be giving you 6 tips on how to say no to your stakeholders and how to push back on some of the requests that they bring to your table. Keep watching. Tip number 1, always back up your no with business data. As much as you can, try to back up your no using business data. A lot of time, stakeholders might come to you and would want to prioritize a shiny feature over a feature that customers need per time, right? If you know your numbers, it's easier for you to push back on such a feature request. So imagine a scenario where a stakeholder wants you to build a shiny feature. Meanwhile, there's a feature that is going to allow you to acquire more customers. How do you say no? Just saying no, we are building a feature because we want to be able to acquire new customer this month is not enough, right? For you to be able to make business sense to your stakeholders, you want to make sure that you are backing up your statement with data. So I'm just going to read what I wrote here. You can communicate your pushback to your stakeholders by speaking this way. We are building this feature to acquire new customers this month because our research shows that 50% of our target markets are opting out of our solution because we do not have feature X. Implementing feature X is going to reduce our churn rate by 50%. The survey form we sent out showed that 3 out of 4 of our customers would have stayed if feature X was available. We believe that having this feature would keep customers and will translate to a monthly revenue of $500. Now watch the way this communication happened. This communication gave business data as to the churn rate that the application is experiencing, and this communication was able to talk about the amount that the business is going to gain if we roll out that particular feature. So backing up your no with data is a great way to get the attention of your stakeholders. Tip number 2, try your best to suggest alternatives to your stakeholders when saying no. Now, stakeholders might come to you, throwing a lot of suggestions at you. As a product manager, you want to make sure that you're not just running with every thought that your stakeholders are throwing at you. That is you leading yourself and your team into a rabbit hole. When stakeholders throw suggestions at you, you want to know why they're making that suggestion. From experience, I can tell that you might have a better opinion. So when they throw suggestions at you, try to provide an alternative route to be taken. If you don't have an alternative route at the time they are speaking with you, then let your stakeholders know that you're going to get back to them. Discuss with members of your team, discuss with your friends, discuss with your colleagues. When I say discuss with your friend, you want to make sure you're not discussing critical information about your organization today, right? So discuss with your colleagues, discuss with your co-workers, gather ideas, then suggest alternatives to your stakeholders, right? Don't just give an outright no. Try to make sure that you are giving your stakeholders other options to work with. Tip number 3, always let the business and the market metrics make the decisions. I know I've sort of talked through this in the first point, but I'm reiterating this again because it's very important. Stakeholders sometimes will give you feature requests based on what they think should work. Don't fall into that trap. Always make sure that the decision or the direction your product is taking per time is based on what the market needs and not based on what an individual thinks is the best way to go. Number 4, feel free to reprioritize with your stakeholders when the feature request is becoming overwhelming. A lot of times, stakeholders will give you feature requests on what should be completed at a particular time box, right? So, just for the sake of example, they might give you, let's say, 5 features to be completed within a certain month. Whilst your team is working, stakeholders might begin to throw in more feature requests that they want completed within the same time frame that had been initially communicated. As a product manager, you are going to quickly burn out, and you're going to quickly burn out your team if you are always taking these requirements without pushing back. Now, when you try to push back, the stakeholders might tell you that all the feature requirements they are throwing at you are important. Now, that's a big trap if you run that way. So what you want to do is prioritize the feature request that your stakeholders have thrown at you. Prioritize it with them. So let's say you have 10 feature requests. Discuss with your stakeholder. What should be priority 1? What should be priority 2? What should be priority 3? You want to go this way so that your team focus on the highest priority per time before jumping on other features. That way you can reshuffle and realign with the expectations of your stakeholders. Number 5, always go to your meetings prepared. I learned this the hard way, and I just learned this recently. Going to your meetings prepared, what it does for you is that it helps you guide the conversations of your stakeholders. So for every meeting I know I do have a lot of recurring meetings with different stakeholders. For all the meetings I have at the start of the week, I make sure that there's an agenda for every meeting. So what that does for you is that it allows you to talk about what is the priority per time for your product. Going to meetings when you are not prepared allows different stakeholders just throwing ideas on the table. Some conversations don't matter to the product at that particular time. Some conversations doesn't even matter to your organization, and everybody just begin to throw it on the table. And the reason why that is happening is because that particular meeting doesn't have an agenda. You want to make sure that you are guiding the thought pattern of your stakeholders. And once that is done, everybody is going to be talking about what makes sense to the business or to the product at that particular time. They are going to the meetings with certain documentations because they are ready. They are going to the meetings with slide decks. You are also preparing the important documentation. You're also going to the meetings with the important slide deck. The conversations are guided and nobody is speaking off context. That way, you avoid the temptation of trying to build everything at the same time. So the conversation is guided and you don't even have to push back because you have sort of patterned the discussion that your stakeholders will be taking per time. Tip number 6, document every major discussions you have with your stakeholders. A lot of siloed conversations happens on Slack, happens on a video call, and some product managers make the mistake of running with those conversations. Trust me, stakeholders might come tomorrow and tell you that you are running with the wrong concept. Every major conversation and decisions you have with your stakeholders, you want to make sure you are documenting it in some way. It could be in a product requirement document, it could be on Confluence, it could be on Jira, whatever it is your team works with. Make sure you are documenting every discussion. What that does is that it creates a source of truth for everybody to make reference to. So people can always make reference to those conversations and they are running with the right thing, right? And if your stakeholders come back tomorrow and tell you you are doing something wrong, you can easily reference the documentation as a great way to say no and push back on unnecessary requests that people might throw at you. Always make sure that you are documenting. Always make sure that you are documenting as a product manager. It is going to save you a lot of stress and troubles. All right, thanks once again for following today's conversation. I hope you're able to learn one or two things. Feel free to subscribe, like, share, and comment. And do let me know what concept you want me to talk about in future episodes. See you in episode 3.